Hey, it is Friday happy hour. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our virtual Friday happy hour. I was doing some calculations this afternoon and I worked out that we've been doing this for 5 months. Yes, it started at the end of March, or it might have actually been mid to late March when we all had our COVID lockdown panic. What are we going to do? How are we going to connect with our friends and our colleagues in Strata? So much going on at that time that we needed to be on top of. And I thought I'd start Friday happy hour on the Facebook page, bringing you updates. Thought maybe we'd do it for a few weeks, maybe a few months. 5 months later, still plenty to talk about, plenty to catch up on. There is something special about a Friday happy hour week. We have switched to having our happy hours every fortnight, and on the off week, I miss you guys. I do. There's something about a Friday when I know I've got happy hour that I wake up in the morning, and it helps that in Sydney at the moment we've had beautiful weather. Sun is shining, as you can see, right through into my studio, and it just feels like a great day. Lots to look forward to. Look forward to seeing you here in the afternoons. Now, if you are coming on in here to happy hour, and I know so many of you are ready and waiting, feel free to pop me a hello there in the comments so that I know you are here and getting excited to hear from our special guest, I'm sure. I do, as always, have a special happy hour guest for you today. It is the very, very experienced Natalie Fitzgerald. We are going to be talking about something that is a little controversial, perhaps. What? Controversial? Us talking? Of course, that's what we do here. We answer the hard questions. We talk about the things that maybe others may be reluctant to talk about. Let's do it here over happy hour. And that is certainly what Natalie is here to do this afternoon. The question is, are our strata managers protecting developers? Have you thought about that one? We are definitely going to get stuck into that very soon. I am seeing lots of you popping in to say hello. It's great to see you. Hi, Gary. Wonderful to have you with us here on Happy Hour. Glenn, hello. Melissa, good to see you, and happy Friday to you too. I am seeing Brett saying hi. Petra, good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Awesome. Now, if you did bring a little drink to happy hour. That's embarrassing. You can see I just washed my glass, right? And now you're getting the water on the glass, and there's some wine in there. If you brought a little drink to happy hour, feel free to let me know what you're sharing with us here today. It doesn't have to be alcohol. Whatever it is that takes your fancy on a Friday afternoon, you are welcome to bring to happy hour and share with us. Hello to Solly. Hello to Jan. I think we're going to have a crowd here today. Looking forward to hearing from our special guest, Natalie Fitzgerald. She will be here very soon. But first of all, big news this week, guys. Did you notice we have officially opened registrations for the Shared Space Summit? Yay, awesome, party time, party poppers, let's do this. Our members inside our online community knew about this one a little bit earlier. So for them, this was an open week. But this week, the rest of the world is aware of the Shared Space Summit. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. It is something that I have been working away on in the background for a few months now. But if I'm honest, it is the coming to life of an idea that has been percolating for a couple of years now. The Shared Space Summit. It is the world's first online summit for strata property owners, for you guys. And if you're a manager, don't worry, you're not being left out. There is plenty of good stuff in this summit for you too. Over 4 days in September, I am bringing you interviews with 9 leading experts on community, property, and law. Now, I truly feel that there is no better time than right now for a summit like this. Not only is it online, of course, as we must do things these days, but I know that these particular handpicked, carefully curated experts are going to bring you the knowledge, the inspiration, the encouragement, the tools, the actionable steps, the strategies that I know you can take back to your communities at a time when most of us are feeling pretty challenged by the world right now. I think we need all the help that we can get, especially when we are looking towards what I think is going to be a very different future. Never before have so many people spent so much time at home. We are seeing people working from home. We are seeing people, hello, my dear Melburnians, restricted by law to staying at home. And some of us have just retreated home because we feel a little bit safer, a little bit more secure. And this rapid change is impacting our Strata communities. The Strata managers here, I see you. I know you will say, you will tell us this in a heartbeat. This is directly impacting our communities. The usual everyday problems that we have always had are being amplified. People are making noise. People are renovating. People are overflowing the bins. They're complaining to you, our Strata managers. People are challenging committee members more than ever. Some people are not paying their levies. We're all trying to learn new skills, like how to wrangle a bunch of grumpy owners on a virtual meeting that we're still trying to get used to running. The decisions that we are all having to make right now are often critical, but the landscape in which we're making them has never been more uncertain. But even with that uncertainty, I am excited. I'm excited because I can sense this immense opportunity that is currently available to us in our Strata sector. I want you to see that, and I want you to tap in to that opportunity. Where can this take our communities? I am fascinated by what our shared spaces might look like on the other side of a global pandemic. And I want to have a front seat. I would be thrilled to have you there in that front seat with me. It will cost you nothing to experience the Shared Space Summit. The registration is free, but I do need you to register. So Rochelle, who is helping me here in the background, is going to pop our registration link into the comments. If you haven't registered already, and I know so many of you have, we are looking at over 200 already registered, and we just opened this up a couple of days ago. So I am really, really excited. Head over there and register for the Shared Space Summit. You will see on that page that I have already announced the names of some of our carefully hand-selected guests that I'm going to be bringing you. First thing you'll notice, if you've been around the Strata conference circuit for a little while, involving yourself in some education and some seminars, I'm not bringing you the usual suspects. Okay, I am bringing you something quite different and some people who are quite different. So far, I can let you know that we have Charles Vogel. Charles is an executive advisor and a regular guest lecturer at the Yale School of Management and the Yale Leadership Institute. He is the author of the international bestseller, The Art of Community. Now, I have chatted to Charles, and he has said, he's told me about this concept of a trust bank. What is a trust bank, and why do our Strata communities, our committees, our councils of owners in particular, why do they need this thing called a trust bank? All right, so that's what Charles is bringing us. That's a little bit of what Charles is bringing us, so much more. I'm also bringing you Sam Rees, the Director of Australian Apartment Advocacy. Now, this is a group that gives voice to people who choose apartments. And Sam brings this absolute shot of positivity, energy to our sector. She tells us all about the easy breezy life of apartment living. She is doing excellent work with governments all around the country, letting them know what apartment owners need to ensure that we can continue to improve apartment living. I'm also chatting to Kat Carmichael. She's joining us from California. Kat is the immediate past president of the Community Associations Institute in the US. The CAI, I want you to think SCA on steroids, right? These guys know their stuff. They are managing super communities in the US. They are huge. Kat explains the difference between a property manager and a community manager. Why do those terms matter? Why do we need to be thinking differently about how we work with our communities? And she tells us why she's so excited about what the post-COVID future of community management looks like in the US. Now, I will be releasing the names of my other guests. There are 6 other guests there in the background, gradually releasing those over the next few weeks. I do like to keep you in surprise. But if you want to know who they are, be the first to know, then get yourself registered for the summit. Free registration. The summit is happening from the 15th to the 18th of September. That is 4 days. Now, if you have questions about the summit, do pop them in the comments and I'll head over and have a look. But I know some of you will be asking, Amanda, how does this all work? World's first online summit, Strata property owners, that means haven't done it before, don't really know what all this is about. Well, what happens is during summit week, I will release to you 2 summit sessions each morning. If you are registered at about 8 o'clock each morning during summit week, you will get an email and it will give you the special link to go and view the recorded session. You can then watch that session once it's been released at any time up to the end of the summit week. Okay, so the 2 sessions that were released on Tuesday morning, for example, you can watch them anytime up to Friday afternoon. All right. Now, even more exciting, I think, we will also be here on Facebook each afternoon during Summit Week, debriefing with even more guest experts, special guests that I have picked for you, and hearing from you about what sessions you're most enjoying, what your key takeaways were. Have you had any aha moments listening to the summit sessions? I'm really looking forward to having those live catch-ups with you each afternoon here on the Facebook page during Summit Week. So if you're on the page for the first time maybe, and you're hearing me talk about the summit and being here live during Summit Week, if you want to be reminded of when we're going live, if you want Facebook to tell you, just tick to like or follow the page here, and then you'll get a notification anytime that we're live here on the page, both for happy hour as we lead up to the summit and also during Summit Week. Now, our summit supporters are Look Up Strata, City of Sydney Council, and Lanark Strata Finance. Those are our special summit supporters who are helping us to share the summit with as many people as possible. And you can help us do that too. If you have neighbours, friends, colleagues, clients, please do share the details of the summit so we can reach as many people as possible in their strata communities. Okay, so that is all about the summit. I am just going to head back over and have a look at who else we have coming through here. It is so good to see you all. I'm seeing Edward saying hi, and Edward saying hi to Natalie as well. She's coming in, Edward. I have her here. Excellent. I'm seeing Petra saying very interesting. Perhaps about our summit guests there. Michael, hello. Joe, hello. Henry, good afternoon. So good to see you. Yes, and I have a little celebration there from Michael. That's how I'm feeling. It's so cool. I'm this excited now. We ain't even started yet. We got 4 weeks to the summit. This is going to be awesome. All right, one more thing that I want to tell you before I bring on our special guest. It's happening soon, guys. She's coming. She's here. She's waiting. One more update. I want to let you know that Waverley Council in Sydney has just opened registrations for their new Solar My Strata pilot program. I love that, and I really love the logo that's on their page as well. Rochelle is going to pop a link in the comments there for you to find out more about this program. It is for buildings that are in the Waverley local government area. It's a free council program, and it is aimed at helping a handful of local strata apartment buildings to identify and hopefully implement solar power on their roof. So Waverley are looking for buildings of up to 45 units, so our smaller to medium-sized buildings, to work with council through the solar process, looking at reducing your electricity costs, providing you with clean green energy, cutting carbon emissions, and future-proofing against rising electricity prices. So all that important stuff you can apply over at the link that Rochelle is going to put in the comments there for you, and Waverley Council will give the lucky selected participants free expert solar power advice, including a feasibility assessment, help in getting quotes, technical advice, assistance with approvals, financial incentives to help pay for solar, lots of good stuff. Check it all out on that page. And if you're a building in the Waverley Local Council area, or you're a manager who has these buildings on your books, please do share that link with them. Registrations are closing Friday, the 11th of September. So just a few weeks left there. Okay, those are my community service announcements for today. We are going to move in to welcome our very special guest. And she is, of course, Natalie Fitzgerald. With a career spanning almost 20 years in the Strata sector, Natalie is an advocate for innovation and leadership in Strata. I say 20 years, and I think she must have started when she was 12. It certainly makes me feel very old. Natalie is the newly appointed General Manager of More Than Strata. She is a proud member of the Women in Strata Steering Committee. She is an unapologetic feminist, a fully fledged inner Westie, and the happy mum of one feisty and funny 11-year-old daughter. You will find Natalie presenting for City of Sydney's Strata 101 workshops, for Deakin University, the University of New South Wales, SCA, and of course, Women in Strata. Where would we be without her? I am bringing her here to you right now. Natalie Fitzgerald, welcome.
Hello, happy Friday, Amanda. You got me in the Friday feels with your exciting news.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yes, I'm excited too. You can tell when I'm excited because I gradually get redder and redder, and just the emotion and the blood pressure. It's nothing to do with this half glass of wine here. I have it all. Not at all.
No, it's the excitement of it. And Waverley Council, what an amazing initiative.
Yes, you can see them following in the footsteps there of City of Sydney Council, another fabulous council doing great things with energy efficiency, with solar, with sustainability. And I can tell you one topic that is definitely part of our summit is sustainability and how we can all be getting involved with improving our buildings for the future. So
yeah, if you're a manager, let your clients know how great are you going to look if you get them on that.
I would think so. Now, Natalie, have you brought a drink to happy hour?
I have a mini drink because I do have to pick my daughter up from cheerleading later this evening. Girl. So mostly I'm drinking tea out of my fancy glasses inspired by Amanda.
Beautiful. I like it. Cheerleading. Cool.
Yes. Yeah. It's the first thing. She's 11 now. I think we said that before. She's finally found something she's really passionate about. It may give me a heart attack when she bends herself backwards and jumps in the air and does all sorts of scary things. And then the wallet's certainly feeling it. It's not a cheap sport, but she is loving it. It's very exciting.
It is indeed. Nice one. All right. Well, we can talk about cheerleading or we can talk about Strata. And I do want to say, whenever I have a very experienced, very knowledgeable guest, particularly from New South Wales, I know a lot of our viewers here are from New South Wales. I do like to say at the top here that if you have Strata questions, if you have questions for myself or for Natalie, don't necessarily have to be about the very controversial topic we're going to talk about, but do pop them in the comments. And Natalie and I are here. We're free so far, available to help you answer those questions. So have a think about those and pop them in. I will head back over to the comments very shortly. But Nat, things have been going on. You have been busy authoring, publishing. You've been talking about strata managers and developers. Particularly new buildings, of course, where that relationship is an interesting one. What inspired you to produce your white paper about strata managers protecting developers?
Yeah, look, it's been a subject that from the very start of my career, I was uncomfortable with. And it's just accepted that managers and developers have these relationships. And it just never sat well with me. And I found myself being moved off new building portfolios. And that was okay because I didn't particularly like needing to deal with the developer in a friendly way if I thought they were doing the wrong thing. As I got more experienced, I would insist on having those buildings because I knew I could protect the owners and fight for them. But I'm not going to go as far as to say that was frowned upon. I certainly didn't get fired or any such thing for doing that. But there's definitely an air of remember where the work comes from that happens in, I'm going to kind of put it out there and say probably most Strata officers who get work from developers, which is most of them. I was fortunate enough at More Than Strata that my the founder and the investors who are part of our business kind of agreed with me that it's an unchangeable relationship. It's unethical, at best, possibly illegal, depending on how you want to interpret the Strata Schemes Management Act. And it just wasn't something that we wanted to do in our business. We wanted to build a business based on existing strata schemes looking for better service. That means, yes, our business is going to grow slower than people who get relationships with developers and know they have work in the pipeline. It means we don't have a pipeline that's 2 years in advance and we know there's business that's going to be there. But it means that we're never conflicted in who we work for.
Okay, so tell me this. For anybody who is not inside one of these companies or had experience before of how this all works, how does this relationship between a developer and a strata manager first start for a particular new building or proposed new strata?
Yeah, so look, it could be anything from strata managers cold calling the big development companies. I've heard of strata managers who have assistants that go through development applications regularly to find out who they are, literally calling people when they see a sign on a fence of a development site. So you kind of call, and the usual line is, have you thought about strata management? Do you have someone looking after the budget? Have you prepared the levies for sale? Have you thought about bylaws? And that's how they kind of get in, if you like. What happens though is, and depending on that, when you get in, that relationship can be up to 2 years before there's even a hole in the ground. You're starting that relationship with this developer. And for that 2-year period, the strata manager will do levy estimates for sales budgets. They will do final budgets. They will get quotes for insurance. They will put the insurance in place on part of the developer. They'll review bylaws. They'll review strata management statements. They'll even look at building plans and suggest, maybe the garbage room should be in a better place. Those are all good things. That is advice from people on the ground the developer should be getting. That is work the strata manager does for free for up to 2 years. Hours and hours of work on the basis that their name will be on the agenda at the first AGM to be appointed.
So is this a formal arrangement that the strata manager has with the developer to say, I will do all of this work for this 2 years worth of work for you for free in return for you proposing me as the strata manager at the first AGM?
Yeah, generally there would be some sort of contract in place or some sort of agreement, because if you're then not put forward, I think there's an understanding that you would be billed for the hours.
Okay. All right. And this is, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so already that, to me, that's a relationship that exists, and that's a lot of work. And when you used to get 3-year appointments at first AGMs in particular, the fight amongst strata companies to get in with these developers, particularly the really big guys, the Mirvacs and Cbus, the anyone who kind of builds big and regularly, because as you can see, like that's going to build a business. That's going to stand your business up and grow it really quickly. And obviously, the longer you can maintain that relationship, the more buildings that are going to come on board. Of course, we know that that's now limited to a 12-month appointment. So at the first AGM. So while we've seen a little bit less, I guess, grabbing, it's not substantial. It hasn't changed this. And you need only Google. And in our white paper, I've got examples from strata managers' websites where I just Googled the word strata manager and developer. And, nearly every strata company you can think of, so I'm not telling secrets here, has a section on their website called developer. And it tells you on their website in public all the things it's going to do for the developer, and it talks about doing it for free. So this isn't hidden information. It's just stuff, unless you knew what you were looking at, you wouldn't understand what it meant.
Yes. Okay, so you're referring there, Natalie, to the restriction that we have in our New South Wales legislation on the appointment of a strata manager at a first AGM. It can only ever be a maximum appointment for 12 months. In your experience, and I appreciate this is legislation that's only been around for about 4 years, but in your experience, the strata manager who is appointed to a brand new building at that first AGM for that 12-month period, owners who perhaps they've all bought off the plan, they're new, they've never experienced strata before, they have that experience of having that strata manager for 12 months. I would imagine it's pretty likely that strata manager then gets reappointed at the second AGM the next year for the maximum 3-year term. So I can hear saying that even with the 12 months, it would still be something quite valuable to the strata management company.
Yeah, look, I'd guesstimate that at 70% of those you're going to be able to renew, both because you do a good job, but also because you're dealing with a bunch of owners who are new and don't know what they're doing. And frankly, there's a lot going on in the first 12 months of a new strata scheme, and replacing the strata manager, unless you've done a terrible job, is just not going to be at the top of that list.
Yes. And I'm also thinking, if this is a strata management company that has done potentially up to 2 years, maybe more, of free work in the lead up to getting appointed at this first AGM, how's the pricing structure for that first appointment?
Yeah, well, that's another really good point. The developer doesn't care what price you're putting on your contract because they're not paying for it. So I think you'll find often that those prices are above market rate. It's a whole nother debate about whether market rate is the right rate. It's it's probably not, but at the same time, the prices are probably going to be above what an owners corporation could get if they negotiated themselves. But not just the price, but also the service inclusions that might be included. So some managers might offer a more inclusive fee where they're doing more for a higher fee, or there's lots of different ways to control, I guess, your strata management fees, and the owners are cut out of that conversation as well. So not just the fee, but also what's included in it, what the expectations are, what the contract even looks like. None of that. They kind of get an agenda for a first AGM, then there's no one else put on that agenda. Obviously, there's one strata manager, and you kind of show up, and they're left with little option but to do the first appointment.
Yep. Okay. Let's talk about this process then of the new owners attending this first AGM, understanding probably for the first time what an owners corporation is all about. And we now have some mandatory things that must be considered at these first AGMs. We must have the question of defects being raised and being discussed. What happens when the strata manager who is there, who has assisted the developer throughout these years of getting the scheme online, and now has to deal with these, I'm going to say, educating these owners about the existence of defects and their rights when it comes to defects in the face of an employer developer next to them who has just made sure they get appointed. How is that situation playing out?
So look, that motion generally looks the same on most agendas. It's pretty watered down. It requires just the amount of detail that it probably should to clarify, to pass the test of having been on the agenda, and it kind of gets skipped over as well. We'll talk about that later. It's the first meeting; nobody knows anything yet. Owners will tend to be quiet. The first AGM is the hardest meeting for any strata manager. I've certainly struggled through them, and I'm sure everyone has. Particularly if it's a brand new settlement, people have just moved in and they're getting all their inside defects, which is common in any building. It's not, it's not a big deal, but I understand if you've got your brand new apartment and the kitchen bench is cracked or the toilet doesn't flush the way you want, those kind of things that the developer or builder will generally come back and fix. But at that time, they're the things that the owners kind of want to talk about. So then the manager is able to go, yes, we'll make sure we'll get those fixed. And yeah, that's no problem. And kind of mask what the motion is really about, which is obviously common property defects, and clearly looking, one would think, at kind of more large, bigger issues than a cracked bench top. But kind of, yes, we'll get your defects fixed. Owners feel reassured that the issue's been dealt with, but really it's just ticked a box.
And I have read your white paper, and we are going to put a link in the comments so that our other viewers can go and check it out. And you spend quite a bit of time talking about, at least specific to New South Wales, the statutory timeframes in the Home Building Act and the warranties that are in there. And you talk about owners needing to be made aware that those warranties exist and that they have expiry dates. And you feel like that's a conversation that is not happening or is being avoided. What's your experience been there with that conversation happening while a developer is still around with the strata manager?
Yeah, look, that's one, there's a misconception and a lack of education, and both with some strata managers, unfortunately, but definitely in the public, where the public still has this idea that they have a 7-year warranty on everything. We know that hasn't been the case for a long time now, but that's still the perception that the clients have. So it's having the conversation, and managers need to understand that most defects are still falling in a 2-year warranty period. That major defect category, there's not a lot of precedent on what that means. And you don't want to be having the legal argument if you don't have to. So ideally, you want to be putting everything in your 2-year limit if you need to. So you're not arguing whether something is a major defect or not. You've claimed everything that you can as much as possible. But knowing when that 2-year date is up, I've seen managers give advice on that. I feel pretty confident in defects, and I would never advise a client when that 2-year date is up because it's such a complicated question. And sometimes you need documentation from the developer to be able to ascertain when that is. So it's easy for the developer to block I guess, obtaining that information. You can go to NCAT and get an order pretty easily to require the developer to hand that over. But how many managers are doing that? Not many, I suspect. A quick look on any NCAT case list will show you that there's not much of that happening. So there's an ability to slow things down so that the 2 years goes really quickly, and then, oops, that deadline's gone.
And if this is a strata manager who gets regular and repeat work from a developer, and perhaps the strata manager is already working with the developer on their next project and assisting them with the setup of the next strata scheme that's coming off, how active is that strata manager in pursuing on behalf of the owners that developer for information about timeframes, bringing to the developer's attention that there is a timeframe expiring, or at least holding the developer to their obligations prior to expiry of that timeframe?
Yeah, look, I think this is where there can be a disconnect sometimes between employee, strata manager, and licensee or BDM, or the person chasing the work. That's been my experience. As the manager, I've always been very clear that I work for the owners corporation. And if it's evident that there are defects, and obviously first and foremost, I want to say nobody wins if you go legal. The aim always is to get these things
Somebody
resolved.
does.
Well, yeah, our friends, the lawyers. But we don't
do defects work, guys, so I'm allowed to say that.
But we don't want to do that if we don't have to. But if you do have to, you need to be prepared really quickly to be able to do that, which is why I always kind of plan, assuming that what's the saying? I'm planning for the worst but hoping for the best.
Yep.
So plan to go legal, make sure we have the advice, make sure we have the reports, make sure we know when the deadline is, still be negotiating, still be open to the builder and or developer coming back and doing what they need to do, but being aware that once that 2 years get close, we're going to file because you need to protect the owners corporation's rights. And when it's easy to, one, lose track of that 2 years. Two, if you're the manager, I've certainly had situations where I felt uncomfortable from the feedback I've got from people above me about how I'm dealing with the developer. I've had the developer texting my supervisor during a meeting complaining that I was being a B word, which I kind of took as pride moment because it meant I was doing my job.
Very, very good strata manager.
Yeah, exactly. But and that, to be honest, that was a really key moment for me of I can't do this anymore, and I need, if I'm going to keep doing a strata, I'm not doing it this way because it's not right. It doesn't feel right to me ethically. There's still the question in my mind as to the legalities of it under the Strata Schemes Management Act. I would love someone to go and test that somewhere.
Are you talking about the connected person provision when you say that? So in New South Wales, the strata manager can't be appointed at the AGM if they are someone who's connected to the developer. And I guess there, Natalie, you're raising the question, if by doing all of this work prior to, for free, I'm sorry?
Under a contract normally. So there's usually a contract.
Okay, under a contract, is that a sufficient connection to exclude the strata manager from being in the running for appointment at the first AGM? Very good question.
And look, when the legislation first came out, I think that's what we all thought. Certainly in the white paper, you'll see a quote that I found from David Bannerman at the time, where he certainly seems to be implying that was his interpretation of it. I know some managers went and set up other companies in different names to get around that connection, and some just ignored it. There's another legal advice that I refer to, or a legal opinion, sorry, that got posted online talking about the operative word is. So the developer's relationship with the strata manager ends at the first AGM. Therefore, there isn't a current connection at the time of the appointment. So their opinion is it all kind of sits on two little letters as to whether or not that's the case. So another really interesting aspect of it, as a business decision, why would you build a business that relies on a stream of income or a stream of business that may not even be there in 12 months' time if somebody takes this to test? So there's even a logical reason, taking the ethics away, to kind of reconsider how that all works.
Yeah. Well, you're certainly not the only one or the first one to be talking about this, Natalie. I seem to remember that there was mention of it in Dr. Nicole Johnston's report when she last year delivered her comprehensive report on building defects across the country. I do think she had a section in this report that queried the role of strata managers and whether some attention needed to be given there by our regulators to make sure that this connection with developers didn't get in the way of ensuring that owners were aware of and able to enforce their rights in time.
Yeah, Owners Corporation Network have also made statements about it. They did so during the inquiry into defects that the New South Wales government did, and quite a few owners also made statements that you can find in that report as well. I've linked it through on the white paper if anyone wants to have a look in detail at that. And it's not a secret, but it's not something that in my mind is kind of getting talked about enough when the impact is a large one. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars that owners could be responsible for paying up if the defects are bad enough and the manager hasn't done their job. And that's either didn't do their job on purpose or not, didn't do their job because they didn't know how, they weren't educated or trained enough, didn't do their job by accident, they thought they were doing it, they thought they knew when the cutoff date was, they didn't, and they got it wrong. This isn't pocket money we're talking about. It's millions of dollars, and not just the money either. It's the strain on these owners needing to live with these defects, and then potentially pay for them as well. It's not a small issue, as we know, yet this big part of it hasn't been talked about outside of kind of closed circles quite enough.
Yeah, I find that a little bit typical of our strata sector, actually, with a few issues. There are certain things in this sector that have always been done the way that they have been done. And people know that they're there. Nothing's under wraps here. Nothing's being a secret. But very few people question it. Whether it's insurance commissions or whether it's there's a relationship between strata managers and developers, or whether it's qualifications and education, that's just the way it's always been. And I am heartened by the fact that perhaps as we see a new generation come through, perhaps as we see more qualified people coming into the sector, asking these questions and more research being done. We have some fabulous academics. I've mentioned Dr. Nicole Johnston giving us data that can then help us answer these questions and find a path forward. I think it's so important that we keep talking about these things and calling them out and not saying, well, it's always been done that way and it's legal, so it's okay. Laws get changed for a reason.
Yeah, and look, I just want to make it, I'm not saying that every strata manager that works with developers.
Oh, hashtag not all strata managers.
Big hashtag there. In fact, I worked at a company and that licensee and principal went out of his way when we realized the developer was doing some pretty awful things to prove that the developer was doing those awful things, and actually spent money personally to do that. So there are definitely amazing managers out there who are doing the right thing and are willing to let go of relationships that are toxic for their clients. But there are also those that walk that line and perhaps a little more on the grey than really is the right thing for the client.
Yep. I want to head over to the comments here. I can see quite a few of them coming through. I'll do some quick hellos for anybody that I missed. Kathy, hello. And Bernard is excited to see you. Okay, we have our links there. I'm just going to come back. Amy's asking a question. What to do if New South Wales Fair Trading failed to conduct proper investigation on strata administrator misleading representation, neglected duty of care? I'm wondering, Amy, if that's a general question, perhaps about a compulsory managing agent, because you've said administrator there. I just want to park that one and come back. So I just want to address these other questions and comments specifically about the relationship between strata managers and developers. Henry is saying, in Victoria, the strata company tenders for the job and is appointed prior to construction. So it's usually a race to the bottom in terms of potential outlays. So I'd be interested to hear there, Henry, what then happens when the owners corporation is formed and the first general meeting is being held, is it the practice that that strata company, the strata management company, I assume you're saying, is appointed as the strata manager for the owners corporation? And I also wonder, you said tenders for the job, so you don't have that arrangement where strata managers are doing work for free in return for being placed on the agenda as the strata manager, I guess. Claire is saying, what's your view of a strata manager making a strata committee sign a non-disclosure agreement on behalf of a developer when working through defects? My view is OMG. Really? Have you seen that, Natalie?
No, I've certainly seen confidentiality agreements when you settle a claim, and
Of course.
but not an NDA while you're in the process of.
I'd be interested to know what state you're in there, Claire. That sounds like a no-no to me. And I have seen a comment further down that ties into this from Bill and Ben. We need to consider the complete failures of agents to meet their fiduciary duties. So that's what's ringing bells there for me, Claire, when I hear about a strata manager getting a committee to sign an NDA. What is their fiduciary duty, and are they acting in the best interest of the owners corporation? And Bill and Ben is saying that some of that regulation is completely toothless. An agent must act in the client's best interest at all times, or it be contrary to the act. Yeah, well, some agents may need some reminding of that. And Claire is saying New South Wales. That's scary stuff, Claire. I am quite shocked that that kind of behaviour is going on. Deb is saying, if you do go legal, would that traditionally mean tools down from the builders immediately, or are they able to continue to fix defects until a court date? Deb, as I've said quite openly, I don't do defects work. I also don't give legal advice on happy hour, but definitely give you some guidance. In my view, the builder should be continuing to meet their obligation to fix defects at any time while their warranty is still in place. So in my view, there'd be no reason why they would stop work or need to stop work or say they were stopping work unless there was some dispute about the nature of the work or the scope of the work that they needed to do.
And you generally wouldn't be filing or going to court if they're on site repairing anyway, unless they've only just started and you're heading towards a deadline. Then you might have to think about it.
Yeah, in New South Wales, you do need to make sure that you've given the builder an opportunity to come in and fix defects. That's a statutory requirement. So it's actually really important that they do have that time to come in and fix. And it's good. Thank you for pointing that out, Deb, because that can also be a reason why some buildings miss the deadline, because they say, oh, well, the builder's here and there's doing these things and promises have been made. This is definitely why you need lawyers involved, because there are all sorts of agreements you might be able to enter into that may extend time. You can enter into a deed, for example, that may extend that time. Or your lawyer might be saying, look, I appreciate all of this is happening, but we are facing a deadline here. And if we don't file on this date, this is the loss that you may be exposed to. So you need to make that informed decision about whether you're going to risk losing your right to claim in return for having the builder still there and happily working away and fixing the problem.
And I mean, that's key, Amanda. It's an informed decision. I mean, whether or not to take legal action is always a commercial decision. And quite often it may weigh up that doesn't add up and it doesn't make sense to do that. But it's imperative that the owners are fully informed of where they're at, what the potential recourse are, what the cost implications could be to them, both if they take action and if they don't, if they were to lose an action, what that might mean to them. All of those things need to be made really clear. And the only way to do that is to get good legal advice. The only way to get good legal advice is to have a strata manager who knows how to brief the lawyer to be able to give you that advice.
Yeah. Now tell me this, Nat, how do we solve this problem? Is it solvable? I mean, we've talked about legislative intervention. Without that, what can our committees, our owners in brand new buildings now be doing to protect their rights if maybe they suspect the strata manager is not the one to be relying on?
Yeah, look, first of all, definitely be asking the hard questions, even if it feels awkward or it makes the manager feel awkward. Do some research. Do they manage every other building by the same developer? You'll be able to find that out relatively easy, I suspect. If the answer is yes, there's a pretty big clue as to whose side they're on in the event that you do have defects. Check your contract. If you're in that first year contract, know that you can change it. You don't have to remain in that agreement. If you have signed into a 3-year agreement and you're not getting not even the service, but the advice and the support you need, I'd be considering looking at ways to get out of that. Even if unfortunately it might mean paying it out, that's going to be less money than potentially not having a defects case managed the way that it needs to be for you. So I know this is going to upset many of my Strata colleagues, and I'm not apologizing because I don't. It's just a relationship that doesn't make sense to me. And I would be telling owners not to work with a Strata manager who's been appointed by the developer, frankly, and outright.
And just being aware. I mean, I say it all the time, there's so much to be said for education, and it's trite to say that knowledge is power, but just knowing that this exists, that it's an issue, that you have rights, that there are timeframes, and knowing the questions to then ask, and to be saying to the committee, well, have we got legal advice? Do we have lawyers advising us? And when a committee says, oh no, it's okay, the Strata manager said, you can take that with the grain of salt that it needs, and see if you need to take that further step of getting a more independent expert advice.
Look, and I will say the counter argument to everything I've said, and in fairness, I published a comment made by a Strata manager who's a very pro-developer in the white paper as well, is, well, if you have a good working relationship with this developer, you're able to negotiate a better outcome for your clients. You can avoid the lawyers, you can avoid the legal action, and you can just negotiate getting the building fixed and everything's going to be hunky-dory. I kind of counter that by saying, well, if that was true, we'd have no defects in New South Wales, because we'd all be having amazing conversations and they'd go and get fixed. It's a great, in theory, conversation, but in reality, it kind of means nothing. A manager not appointed by the developer who is capable of negotiating can have the negotiation conversation regardless of whether they were appointed or not.
Yep, I agree. Okay, scrolling back up just to say some more hellos, that I have seen some names come in here that I haven't got to. Sorry, guys. Rob, that's who I saw. Hi, Rob. Good to see you. Saying hi to both of us there. And Gillian, hello. And Deb, we've answered that question. Excellent. Thank you. Ronald is saying, in Victoria, there are developers who ask for outright payment, and there are some managers who are backed by external investors who will pay $1,000 per lot or 5 years fee in exchange for a 5 to 10 year agreement. Yeah, it's a minefield. It's a minefield, and it's interesting to hear these different arrangements that there are in place around the country, and that's frustrating too, because it means it's hard to have a holistic, nationwide approach to addressing a problem that everybody's experiencing. Gosh, isn't that just the story in Strata, that we all have the same problems but different legislation, and so incredibly complex ways of solving them?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there's no easy solution. I mean, some of it as well is a Strata manager valuing their own time better, working for free for 2 years. And we're talking hours and hours of expert work.
Tell me about that, because you would have been involved in that, I imagine, if you were coming from a company that did a lot of developer work. It is hours and hours, and it just seems bizarre to me that you'd do work for free as well.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, the larger the building, particularly stage developments or BMCs or anything with any complexity in it, you're doing multiple budgets. You're doing multiple reworks of those budgets, because no one's going to be surprised that developer never likes the first one and wants you to get the levies lower. You are getting quotations for insurance placements. You are reviewing bylaws. You are reviewing strata management statements. You are looking at plans. You're going out on site. You're doing settlement days. You are out there on a Saturday meeting your new clients. And all of this work is for absolutely nothing. In terms of, except for you will get your name to be the Strata manager at the first AGM. So it doesn't even add up. You'd have to manage the building, I would suspect, on most management fee arrangements for at least 3 to 5 years to recoup the 2 years worth of expense in terms of time. And I've no doubt that the large Strata companies will have multiple people in new development teams, so a whole salary base, a lot of cost to kind
And
of
that's
keep.
weighing on you, isn't it? That we, as a business owner, maybe not so much an employee, but as a business owner, you're thinking that, and you're thinking, I need to secure this engagement, and I need to secure
Yeah.
it not just at the first AGM, but I need to secure it at the next AGM as well for at least 3 years. And that's whether it's conscious or not. It could just be this unconscious approach that you then have to your communications with the developer. But therein lies the conflict, right? That's why we legislate against and we try to avoid conflicts of interest, because often we can't see them until we're deep inside them.
Yeah, and I'm sure often than not, it's not even a conscious decision or a feeling that you're doing something wrong. You think you're kind of, I'm just helping out, or I'm just remembering where the work is. I'm not disclosing private information to the developer from my client. But even the heads up calls, like just heads up that my manager is going to be sending through, whatever, there's a legal letter coming. But why? Why are we giving them a heads up? It'd be like you, Amanda, calling your opposition, saying, hey, guess what? And this is like probably the lower end of the scale in terms of culpability here. I've seen, I've been out on Melbourne Cup Day, and I've seen well-known strata manager, a BDM with a room full of developers drinking away and spending thousands of dollars entertaining. This is we were talking before about how strata managers don't market. They're not marketing traditionally the way you and I do, because they're out spending their marketing budget entertaining developers, whining and dining.
Yeah. And look, developers and strata managers are not the only ones guilty of that. Lawyers for years in this sector have done precisely that, getting most of their work from strata managers, being the only lawyer that strata managers will send work to, and therefore taking strata managers out, having specific events or dinners or whatever it is. That I definitely see changing, because what's happening is that the owners are now deciding who they want to represent their building. It's not the strata manager who has that say. And so often I hear committees say to me, oh, Amanda, the lawyer for our strata manager is so-and-so. And what they mean is the lawyer to which our strata manager sends all their work is so-and-so, but we don't want that lawyer. We want to have a different choice. And we've been able to Google and find that listening to your podcast, watching your videos, we feel like we know you and we're ready to work with you. That's where the lawyers of the future will be getting their work and how they'll be getting their work. And absolutely, strata managers need to be thinking about that as well. All your eggs in one basket is always a bad idea, guys.
Yeah, if your whole business relies on a couple of developers throwing you buildings your way, that's not sustainable. Something will give, something will change. The owners are getting smarter. They're finding Amanda's podcast. They're finding this type of information, and they're going to be saying enough is enough. We want someone working on our side and on our team, and they're going to find the right people.
Michael is asking a question here. Can a lot owner that is in the know, that's the key point, isn't it, Michael, put forward a motion for the first AGM? And could that be a strata manager agreement, so an alternative? Or is there no point, since the developer may still own most of the lots? Have you had any experience of that, Natalie?
Yeah, you most certainly can.
If you know it.
Yeah, if you know who the strata manager is that's putting the agenda together, you can certainly request that a motion for an alternative appointment goes on. You'd need a agreement from the proposed strata manager to do that. I've certainly had AGMs where the owners who were in the know have done that and have shown up with alternative appointment options, which is a great thing. You should be the person in as owners making that choice. Developers still owning most of the lots. We don't see that as much as we used to, although it's starting to change again. So we probably had a period of 5 or more years where everything was sold off the plan. And the developer might hold on to 1 or 2 lots, or they might hold on to the commercial lots down the bottom as a separate stratum. So it wouldn't be in that strata plan. I suspect in the current environment, we'll see a shift back where the developer might own more again than they used to. I think the number, Amanda, you'll know possibly better than me off the top of your head. If they own more than 70% of the lots, their vote gets cut by 50%. I'd have to look it up to remember. But there is a process where their voting rights are reduced. So it's definitely worth, still going through that process.
Yeah, really good question there, Michael. And that's the thing about knowledge and being in the know, and being a new owner in a plan that has just been registered, and being aware even that a first AGM is a thing that's going to be happening, and doing the research to find out who's the strata manager, so I can then contact that person, get in touch, find out the date. And of course, as we know, the date of the meeting is very different to the date that the notice is going to be sent out. That being a Yeah, that being a really common complaint that I find from owners, saying, Amanda, why isn't there some mandated process where strata managers have to tell owners the last date by which you can submit a motion so it makes the agenda? Because too often strata managers or even self-managed schemes are sending out notices of AGM, and owners just have no idea it was coming, and they wanted to submit a motion and they've missed the deadline. I understand how frustrating that is.
Yeah, it's definitely although, you know what, it's a funny one because you're supposed to give notice when your agency agreement's due to expire in 3 months. And I've just taken over 10 buildings, and I can tell you 0 out of 10 of those owners corporations were given their 3-month notice. So
Yeah.
there's lots of stuff that just isn't right in terms of strata management appointments, that's for sure.
Yeah, Rena and I have certainly talked about that one on the podcast. Something I did see recently was a strata management company that when they were appointed, in the minutes of the meeting, they gave the date. They gave notice of the date, that is 3 months
And
before the
then
expiry
therefore
of the
they
appointment, and therefore said they'd complied with the Section 50 obligation to give notice 3 months before the expiry date, because it was in fact 3 years before the expiry date.
Yeah. If you're
Things
doing
like
a
that.
good job, your clients will renew your agreement. Like it's pretty simple stuff. And as consumers, your clients have the rights to go and see what else is in the market. And if you're doing a good enough job, they're not going to care if someone's a bit more, a little bit cheaper than you. It's just due diligence on their part. So.
Yeah, I'm seeing Colin's comment there saying, welcome to the letter of the law versus the spirit. Yes, I think that about sums it up. Jules is saying, great information, Nat. Thank you. Very informative. And you're getting a cheers there. And she's downloading the paper now. We might pop, because we've had so many comments there, Rochelle, we might pop another link to the paper just towards the bottom there for anybody who hasn't caught it yet. Go over and have a read of Nat's paper. It is not long, and Natalie is an excellent writer, very experienced, so it's very easy to read. Get involved in this very important information. I'm seeing a comment there from Henry. In my experience, you can certainly write a tender proposal to suit a specification, thus guaranteeing that you win the tender. Interesting.
Yeah, it's the 3 quote rule as well. I've seen strata managers go and get quotes from their strata manager mates so that they've complied with the 3 quotes for costs over $20,000.
Yes, that was just in my head earlier as well. I forgot to raise it. I have given advice previously to a new building that was having its first AGM, and the strata manager said, because this is a large scheme, over 100 lots in New South Wales, there is a section in our Act that says for any contracts that are over the regulated amount currently being 30,000, the last I checked, you must get at least 2 quotes. And query, did that mean the developer had to get 2 quotes from 2 different strata management companies? Look, as I said, don't give advice on this happy hour, but my memory is that I said, yes, you do need to give 2 quotes, being a large strata scheme, in order to meet that requirement. How many developers are doing that? Who knows? And as you said, Nat, it may be the strata manager's mate who's the second quote.
That's exactly what they're doing. If they're doing it, it's call my mate and make sure it's a cheaper quote. It's the reality, unfortunately, that is happening out there. And look, I said it before, I'll say it again. Oh, my strata management friends are probably not going to be my friends after this, but this is important stuff for people to know that it's happening, and it's your home, it's your investment. So let's get it right for you.
No, I have to tell you, I generally find if I ever talk about something controversial, the vast majority of people are grateful that you're talking about it because they've been thinking it too. You have a small minority of those who might complain and not like these things being brought to light. But it is more important to be acting in accordance with your integrity, which I know is what you do, Natalie. Yep. Yeah. Deb is saying, is there no legislative requirement for a strata manager to request motions from owners prior to an AGM or a general meeting? There is not, Deb. Yep. There is not. We are looking at a review of our legislation in New South Wales. It's due for a review around about this time. It's actually late, and there is a working group or two being put together to consider the operation of the Strata Schemes Management Act as well as the Strata Schemes Development Act. So a few of these issues that I'm seeing coming up are already being talked about in legal circles. So it's important that we do keep talking about them and seeing what you're experiencing there on the ground and things that you think might be in the law that are not actually there. Now, I can see your long comment there, Emiliana. Hello, thank you for joining us. I'm going to come back to that and also some other comments that I didn't get to, including the earlier one from Amy. I haven't managed to get back to. But we have had so many people here today keen for this information, Natalie. Thank you very much for putting together the white paper, for bringing this issue to everybody's attention, and for being here on a Friday afternoon to enjoy happy hour with us.
I always love hanging out with you, Amanda, and with everyone who's come along. And look, I'm always, if not happy, willing to kind of put the stuff out there that's wrong that we can all work together to fix and change. And whether that be my strata life or my feminist world or wherever it may be. And in this case, this is one that I feel really strongly about it and will continue to agitate for change with.
And thank you. We are lucky to have you. And thank you, everybody, for being here today. If you have enjoyed what we've had to say, feel free to share far and wide to anybody else who you think is going to benefit from this information. Give us a thumbs up, give us a smiley face, help Facebook share this where it needs to go. And I will see you again soon. I'm going to go back and put my summit preparations hat on. You guys know me.
Yeah, we're excited. Great work, Amanda.
I'm glad you're excited. I got 4 more weeks of early mornings and late nights, and takes a bit to put together, but it's all fun. We'll get there. Have a great weekend, guys. See you,
everybody. Bye.